I'm excited to welcome Brett Fountain. Brett is joining us from Deepwatch, and Brett, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chip. Appreciate it. Good to see you, Puneet. Thanks for having me on the show today. Really I'm part of this whole forum. It's interesting information to share it there. And man, Gary was dropping some knowledge on everybody today. That was some great stuff. But, it's hard to get those inner workings and those understandings of like how do you tame the savage beast and those, or we like to say the dark arts of AWS, and hearing from those great peers is always fantastic. So big applaud from me to Gary for a lot of the knowledge he was dropping on the crew today. So
it's awesome. All right, I'm going to let you guys go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Brett, you said it directly, right? And I'll just do a brief intro. But between you and Gary, it's very hard to learn from, it's very hard to learn all about the complex practices that Amazon has. And you guys are simplifying it for the community that has joined us today. Just in terms of introduction, yours is a very fun introduction that I love doing. Brett is also known as Cloud Thor. So that's why this is fun. He has the AWS Alliance team at Deepwatch, which is a big partner to Amazon. He'll talk about it. He's also a co-founder of Caddyshack. So he's been an advocate of partnering and specifically partnering with AWS for a very long time. Brett has led 3 successful ISVs into the Amazon ecosystem. And he's right now focused on a mission to make Deepwatch the top resilient enterprise security platform that Amazon works with. Under his leadership, Deepwatch has received multiple awards and nominations, including Partner of the Year award in 2023. And Brett himself was nominated for the CRN Top 100 People You Should Know. So after that fun introduction, Brett, if there is anything to add, otherwise we'll dive right into the questions.
No, I think that was a mouthful for sure. And again, thanks for, like to say, I've been around the APO and the APN for many moons now, and my background was a little better, but, try to come virtually from the AWS spheres, right? So many great things have come from that location and working with AWS over the years. It's great to be part of it. And thanks for the shout out for Caddyshack, right? It's the largest AWS partner peer community out there. And we're just trying to make the place a little easier, make the world of partnerships working with AWS a little easier, one partner at a time. And it's a great community for anybody to join. So thanks for the call out on that.
Absolutely. So we'll start with a similar question that we had for Gary. What is your guys' strategy around AWS co-seller marketplace today? Like, how are you building that strategy? I know this is something that you have been passionate about. You have done it at 3 ISVs. So if you could talk a little bit more about that one, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to keep that vision simple, right? AWS is a monster of the weight of the Amazon.com domain there, right? And we want to be able to leverage that really early and often and as transparently as possible. Those are my two priorities when it comes to working with AWS is how we're going to get engaged, how we're going to leverage the weight of $100 billion domain to help, accelerate, Deepwatch in the co-sell of the security security environments that are out there today. So co-sell and marketplace, right? Again, asking to get involved with AWS is such a strong motion in general, right? These guys have changed the world as we know it. The ability to Netflix and chill and Facebook and Instagram, right? Like everything is different now, and so is the co-sell. I mean, they're trusted advisors of some of the largest organizations in the world that have made the decision to come towards the hyperscalers to change the way that they're doing business. And we want to have the same approach with it too. We want to get in again early and often with the AWS teams, understand what are the challenges that we can help solve for, and just be really, really good co-sell buddies to the AWS sellers in general. And marketplace, of course, being that interesting new motion that we've had over the last decade or so, when it's really, really been taken off in the last 5 years, has really changed the way that we go to market, where we've found budget in places that didn't exist before, and how we financially change the conversation of what we're working through in our opportunities with the customers that we're working with today.
Got it. That's very interesting. So what do you think? What's the future of co-selling with that monster, as you call it? What is the future of Amazon co-selling?
So, I'm a big advocate of treating, AWS in multiple forms that are all super intertwined together, right? It's not just co-sell. There's co-marketing that comes from it. There's co-building of new technologies, be it competitive or for, another version of being from the technical perspective, customer obsessed, right? How do we work closer with such a big monster with so much data and so much power and strength that can help us be a better partner to, not only AWS, but a better partner towards the customers that we're working with today. So I think it's really, it's going to be three facets for me. Kind of really building that army of co-sellers, helping my teams understand when to get engaged, how, early and often, like I like to say, how to leverage that relationship of understanding, what's going on with the customer, what are some of the challenges that they have there today. And then kind of beyond that, right, is again, this is where it's all very, very intertwined, building new technologies like our built-in competency that's going to be going GA at reInvent this year, as announced earlier in the year at Reinforce. That gives us the ability to do more, keep our customers safer. And of course, there's that co-marketing that comes along with it. And I think this is all kind of the, involved in really the co-sell. Again, it's so super intertwined in the way that we go to market with AWS, how we solve for customers' challenges that are out there. And then we build on that in kind of a, snowball form of how it's all actually really, really interconnected today.
Yeah. I think you hit the right three themes, right? You co-build, you build the best technology, then you co-market, so you run your campaigns, and then you go do the co-selling part, which is getting involved and engaged with this army of sellers from Amazon that complements your sales team. So then how do you get the attention for this army of sellers, the AWS field? Gary had some ideas. He was taking a data-driven approach, and he was making it very programmatic. What has your approach been if you compare and contrast with things that Own Backup was doing?
Yeah, so I'd say I align a lot with what Gary was talking about there, right? You got to understand. So I'm going to talk about two quick challenges and two things that you have to do in order to work with AWS. So number one, you got to know your divisional placement. If you don't understand where you're supposed to work in such a vast sea of sellers and leaders of leaders and directors and AVPs and all the overlays, you're going to burn bridges because they don't have enough people to be able to scale towards 1,000 partners that are in ISV Accelerate, right? Any of the other intimate, invite-only programs that they have today, all the consulting partners and SIs. If you run around thinking that you can do everything soup to nuts from startup to the enterprise and strategic, you're not going to make a lot of friends that way. So understanding your divisional placement, I think, is number one when you're going to work and approach your co-sell cadence with AWS. Number two is just like Gary said, understanding your superpower. The AWS seller has, on top of those thousands of partners, right? And they've got 275 of their own products they're trying to sell. If you don't know how to correctly articulate that 1 inch difference between you and any of your competitors, you're doing yourself an injustice, and you're doing the injustice of that AWS seller as well, because they just don't have that much time in the day if you can't really articulate that to help you in the co-sell. So those are the two big things that everyone should focus on when approaching with AWS as at the ground level, right? I think beyond that, the other two things that you really got to understand, I'd say of all the members that we had when we first, kind of surveyed early on, we saw a lot of the same trend. And this is very true in the emerging world. Same thing for the really big partners that are out there. Working with AWS is not the channel. Let me just say that right now. It is not the channel. Alliances is a whole different motion. It kind of comes across those things I say about, co-sell, co-market, co-build. Channel, again, it's not quite the same. It's a very different motion in how you're integrated into it. Even for somebody like Deepwatch, right? We're an ISV that's digitally native, a D&B, digitally native business to AWS, born in the cloud. The way that we engage is different, again, than channel. And it's because of a lot of those different motions, certain programs that you can get in publicly, like ISV Accelerate, some of those that it could be private, different types of betas that are out there, both from the co-build to co-market areas, right? So I'd say, those knowing your superpower, really understanding your divisional placement is key. And, again, don't treat them like the channel. It's not the channel. You can't go in and treat it like the channel where you show up and say, all right, here's your spiffs for selling the Deepwatch platform today. It doesn't work like that. You can't sell Amazon sellers. You can adhere and align, as we say, right? Align to the internal programs that are accelerators towards both buckets, right? And AWS sellers, this is a mic drop hint right here. They got two different buckets that you can impact. One for sales commission and the other one for sales compensation. So if you want to help them with their quota retirement, you got to understand how to do both of those. And there's a couple different unique ways to do it. Some of them I can't even talk about. Other ones you just have to kind of discover on your own, do a little bit of research of how you impact their actual compensation programs. That's really, really key. If you want to get their attention, understand how that works.
I think that's really powerful, right? Like making the differentiation that it is not the channel. So you have to make sure that you have a targeted strategy and you're not taking that same playbook that you might have developed several years ago, because this is again, I'll keep going using your word. This is a new monster, right? So you have to make sure that you have the right strategy targeted towards that. So you and I have looked at numbers together. You have done a case study with us. We have seen phenomenal growth in the way you have built that coastal piece, especially with the small team, right? You don't have a big team at Deepwatch, but the returns that you've had and how you have established yourself as a key player in that ecosystem has been phenomenal. So how did you do that, Brett? And in that context, if you can also talk about the role that WorkSpan played in that journey, I think that would be great for some of the audience to hear.
Yeah, 100%. Right. So, one of the things I always mention is, again, transparency. You want to have as much transparency in your pipeline with AWS, because this is what gets you recognized. This is what gets you on the P&Ls of different product leaders across AWS. And there's a secret sauce to the way that you do that too. And there's two ways to do it. There's butts and seats, or you work with an integration partner that can help you accelerate and scale what you're trying to accomplish with AWS. So, even my vision of how we can impact so many different parties with inside of AWS, I could never get there on my own. Me, spending time trying to manually enter this stuff all day long. That's one thing, right? That's a simplified version of WorkSpan, what WorkSpan does for Deepwatch. But what it really does is so much more complex in the way that, I get to execute against my strategy with all those different key terms, right? Knowing how to leverage ACE, different, everything from hashtags to different products that should be integrated into what your platform has and how you can call those out is a really massive accelerator. Having the different tracking to your marketing campaigns gets you the visibility to the marketers, and that all comes through ACE, every single last piece of it. So, part of our rise to fame pretty quickly here at Deepwatch with the AWS ecosystem is absolutely leveraging a massive partner like WorkSpan today, right? We couldn't get to be where we needed to be without you guys. I'd have to hire 5 people just to keep up with the so many opportunities that we have, just the weekly cadence of keeping that data clean and launching opportunities and all the other kind of stuff that goes through it. And, it gets pretty complex really quickly. But again, having WorkSpan there, getting to leverage all the little ins and outs and things that I know how to, leverage ACE for our transparency, and using WorkSpan's ability to scale has really been a massive part of the, executing against the whole vision of me coming to Deepwatch to kind of execute against the aligned strategy and things that I wanted to accomplish here. So.
Yeah, and I think you're one of the early adopters because Amazon is now mandating a lot of its top partners to start integrating and using that CRM integration and not having the partners come in manually. So something that you're, I'm sure, pretty familiar with, and therefore it becomes even more important for us to establish that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big part of our ecosystem here at Deepwatch and how we work with them, moving forward, not only from those compensation things I talked about, from quota retirement to impacting their commissions, but adhering to some of the changes that are coming up in the future years. Up in 2024, our strategy is going to have to shift and change. It's going to have more, there's going to be more requirements and need around ACE itself, the way we're audited, the way we launch opportunities, and marketplace 100% being a requirement on top of an ACE integration. And let me just say too, I couldn't imagine trying to, use the, maybe the native tool from AWS. We've looked at it before a couple of ISVs ago. We were one of the first beta partners that tried to do it, and it was really, really tough. It's, it's a full-blown development project, in my opinion. I think people underrate it both inside of AWS and from a partner perspective. It's not, out of the box technology unless you're working with the partner that can actually help you get there. I'd say it's more of it's a platform integration, software tuning program at a minimum. And if you don't have really strong development teams that can help you do that, it's going to be tough, right? And you're kind of on your own. It's one of the things I love about AWS, right? You can build the fastest race car in the world on AWS, but without really good drivers, the car's not going to go anywhere. Like, I don't know how to run an F1 race car, but you guys do, and that's why we partner with WorkSpan, because I'm not trying to build new technologies just to integrate with ACE. I'd rather have somebody like you that are experts to help me execute against my vision.
I think that's a great analogy, right? Like you're sitting in the back seat, you get the drive, and you get to your destination from point A to point B, and we are sitting in the driver's seat, making sure that you don't have to deal with that complex technology. So I think that's a great analogy. I might use that in the future. So you touched upon this. We just came out, like we announced today, that look, for Amazon, we have seen, for even all the hyperscalers, we are seeing coastal and marketplace are now one. Everybody's talking about coastal and marketplace in the same breath. So how is How is co-sell and marketplace important for you in the future as you think about year 2, year 3, year 4 of that journey that you have currently with Deepwatch?
Yeah, it's very, very important. We really have kind of we have an all-in approach when it comes to AWS over here at Deepwatch. Again, ISV, DNB to AWS. Everything we do is native to it, from services that we integrate with to the co-sell motions again, and even the marketing motion. There's a lot of the co-branding there. I think as the changes come, right, it gives us. I'm pretty open to pretty open to the changes that are coming because of the acceleration that it can keep having for Deepwatch. I think if you're not positioned really well, it's going to make it even more difficult to work with AWS in your co-sell motions, just because there's more technical requirements. They can't cater to everybody and be perfect for all partners that are out there. You've got to really kind of understand how your organization can adhere to theirs. So for us, I think it's a tactical advantage for sure that allows us to execute against our strategy to get even tighter with AWS, especially with more requirements coming. Just, same thing for call it like a regulation, right? You have to attest to different kind of lines to be able to make your co-sell motion work. And in AWS's defense, they've got to make it tighter. They've got to automate more. And this is where a lot of these requirements are coming from. In order for them to scale, these are the certain kind of markers they got to put in place for all partners to adhere to, which is, so again, it's looking at the community as a whole, it's new challenges, but they're only hurdles. They're things that can be overcome with great partners. And then for the rest of us partners that are already there, I think it's a great advantage to kind of, we can keep that accelerating now, because AWS is going to look at us as, again, kind of that next generation partner. Hey, they're doing all this stuff they're supposed to do. They're helping us get a little faster where we need to be. They got the transparency and the visibility to bring us into more co-sell motions and more organically. So the more organic you can get with AWS and that true trusted partnership, right? Building trust with AWS, the faster that you can move as an organization. So I see as a great advantage, even though it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's all our partners are telling us, that it's a challenge, but if done it the right way, that's going to be a very strong growth vector for each of the partners. So I'll ask the last question, Brett, and then we'll open it up to the audience. You have that unique perspective. You have worked across 3 ISVs in the Amazon ecosystem, and then you are a co-founder at Caddyshack. So people are looking for advice from you. That what advice do you have for partners looking to meet some of these co-sell requirements and really qualify for this co-sell ready status?
Co-sell specifically, again, you got to have all the parts have to be moving. Like all the parts have to be moving in your, and again, like what I like to call the 5 C's of success, right? I'm stealing that from Mr. Michael Musselman. I'll give him a call out from Lacework. They're all intertwined. I'll use even like a competency as an example. A competency is a marketing opportunity, but also a technical validation, which includes funds to do more field marketing events to evangelize and build rapport in your co-sell with AWS, right? So that's a small example of it, but the 5 C's of success include, of course, and this is some of the things that even Gary called out and Nina called out, like your heroes and your champions. It's the co-sell, the co-market, and the co-build. And there's those 2 pillars that encompass those, right? Driving consumption and, of course, your champions, right? Having those champions, this is where, Gary was talking about too, letting in where you find your divisional placement and you find those champions within those different areas that'll take you to those other areas, like you said, manufacturing in Germany. I mean, it's a great example of where to spend your time during divisional placement. So I think it's a combination. Again, the 5 C's of success are going to lead you towards AWS leaning in towards you. The more that you do, the more they bring you into. And as a example, I'm in 5 betas for co-sell motions today, all AWS led. I'm in 5 more co-build motions with new technology that will differentiate ourselves from any of our competitors out there today. And help with our customer experience, better onboarding, better accessibility to security and visibility for them. And again, you've got to have those motions to help you move, integrations and the opportunity to use organizations like WorkSpan to scale is the only way that you're going to get there. Manual effort and, butts and seats kind of thing it's a little bit becoming a little bit of a thing of the past. It just doesn't scale. And that's a really, really expensive way to scale with a hyperscaler.
Yeah. No, I think that's phenomenal. So, Chip, why don't we bring it back? But Brett, what you described here, right, the whole journey, I think it's a very complex journey. And for us to help you we are very thankful for your partnership. Chip, why don't we take some of the questions from the audience?
Yeah, fantastic, Brett and Puneet. Great discussion. Brett, thank you for sharing so much about your, in the trenches. It's really terrific to hear how things are going. It's a question from Barry Schween from Splunk. Hi, Barry. How does AWS define the influence they provide, and how are partners measuring it?
That's an interesting perspective for sure for AWS defining the influence they provide. I'd say, for me, the obvious ones that are there, right? I'd say, marketplace can help accelerate the purchase journey. It can reduce the amount of time towards procurement teams, red lines. I'd say even for our team, it's one of my favorite comments ever. We're in the enterprise. Most of the time, that's anywhere from a couple weeks to 6 weeks worth of negotiation with a procurement team. And some of our biggest deals have gone to a single meeting with the procurement team. And because of AWS influencing that, having that ability to have marketplace transactions there, leveraging the T's and C's and MSAs of AWS really kind of accelerates the journey. That's a really long explanation of one part of influence for sure. But things like EDP that you can benefit, right? Those are some more the obvious. I'd say influence beyond that, right? Is working with the customer, really validating that the partner solution solves for those challenges that the customers are having, and using us as a strategic partner when it comes to all things security with AWS. We see a lot of influence on that side, so I think it's mutual. I think it's a combination of, like we've said, the things that are easily attainable. Influence is a hard thing to measure just in general, but so beyond those super attainable versions, like again marketplace and EDP, maybe credits that can come through the AWS marketplace through like an MPOP program would be another way. But when it comes down to really making an impact to a lot of our opportunities, full disclosure, in my opinion, it's at the tactical level. It's hand-to-hand combat. It's that AWS seller influencing the opportunity as their trusted advisor to say, hey, everything that you're trying to deal with, as AWS, we want to validate that these guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They can actually help you with your challenges that you're going to have today. And on behalf of AWS, we want to say XYZ behind it, right? So there's a ton of different measurements out there. I think those are some of the easiest and obvious, right? That person-to-person influence is bigger and badder than anything else. I'd say even more than credits, and sometimes even EDP influence.
Terrific. Fantastic. Maybe one more question. We're getting close to the top of the hour from Ace Thrombly. In terms of co-marketing and co-build with AWS, what types of initiatives have been effective for you, and how do you make sure you're aligned with AWS's goals?
It's a good one. Co-marketing, co-build, right? So for us, I think this is where everyone needs to kind of look at their own organization when it comes to co-market, co-build. If you wait around for AWS to solve for your problems or align to your business, you're going to be waiting a long time. Steer your own ship. AWS likes that, right? So when we think about co-marketing, co-build, I go to AWS and say, hey, these are the things that are important for my customers. How do we make this better together? How do we leverage your engineering teams and ours to make the world a safer place, right? How do we give them a better experience? And AWS will lean in really, really heavy in that direction. Again, that's where the snowball starts to happen. They like to see the uniqueness of your organization, the intelligent members of your teams. It gets the wheels turning, right? Same thing for the co-market. I jokingly say I got to rent a Ferrari, with AWS to go work on a new Security Live series with those guys, just to be a little more creative. So they love your creativity too. Again, steer your own ship. It really leads to a very fruitful relationship. And AWS likes individuals that stand out of the crowd, the ones that are really customer obsessed. It's not just a new technology we're trying to build. Sometimes it's the better customer experience that we're trying to build for our customers. And that stands out. They love to see that you align with their pillars of leadership. And again, the co-market side, the more unique you are and creative of things you can throw out there, AWS will come back to you because they want to do it again.
Terrific. Awesome.
So I know we are at the top of the hour, Chip. Are we taking more questions or are we closing it?
I think we're closing it there.
Okay, great.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Brett, I think that was very solid advice, especially taking control of your destiny, even though you have thousands of sellers on the Amazon side, just making sure you're deliberate and acting very deliberately to get all the motions of the partnership going. I think that's great advice for everyone. So I appreciate you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you taking the time, especially as you wear your two hats, and you bring that unique perspective. So we really appreciate the advice that you gave us today.
Thank you, Chip. Thank you, Puneet. Appreciate it.
And by the way, we do have a case study for Deepwatch, and if anyone wants to download it, we'll put the link in there, or just hit it with your camera on the QR code. Brett, thank you so much, and Puneet, terrific, awesome session, and really appreciate it. Great knowledge.